You don't quit a $90,000 job on a Tuesday morning. That's not how it's supposed to happen. It's supposed to be a slow burn. The resignation letter drafted and deleted 17 times. The careful calculation of runway, the safety net already in place before you ever let go of the rope. That's how responsible people do it. That's how the version of you that still believed in the plan would have done it. But you're standing in the elevator on a Tuesday morning, and the number on your phone screen, the balance you've been quietly building for 2 years, feels suddenly less like a safety net and more like a question you've been too afraid to answer. The doors open on the 14th floor. The office smells like it always smells. Burnt coffee, recycled air, someone's lunch reheating in the microwave down the hall. You walk to your desk. You sit down. You open your laptop. And then you close it again. Not dramatically, not with a speech. You close the laptop, pick up your bag, and walk back to the elevator. You press the lobby button. The doors close. In the reflection of the polished metal, you watch your own face, and you don't look like someone making the biggest mistake of their life. You look like someone who just remembered something they'd been trying to forget for 3 years. You type the resignation email in the parking garage. You send it before you can think about it too long. Then you sit in your car for 47 minutes, not panicking, not celebrating, just sitting in the particular silence of a decision that cannot be unmade. That was day 0. You wake up at 6:14 a.m. because your body doesn't know yet. The alarm isn't set. The alarm hasn't been set. But your nervous system has been conditioned by 3 years of fluorescent lighting and 8:30 stand-ups, and it pulls you out of sleep like something is already late. You lie in the dark for a moment and run the numbers the way you always run the numbers. $47,200 in savings. No debt except the car, which costs you $340 a month. Rent, $1,450. Groceries, utilities, phone. Call it another $600. You've got roughly 24 months of runway if you live lean. You've got maybe 18 if you live the way you've been living. You've given yourself 90 days to figure out what comes next. 90 days sounds long until you count it. It's 12 and a half weeks. It's 1/4 of a year. It's the length of a season. Sitting in the gray morning light of your apartment, 90 days feels like both an eternity and nothing at all. You make coffee. You sit at the kitchen table. You open a blank document on your laptop and type at the top, "What do I actually want?" Then you stare at it for 22 minutes. You don't type anything else. This is the first thing nobody tells you about leaving a job with no plan. The silence doesn't feel like freedom immediately. It feels like static, like the channel changed but nothing is broadcasting yet. You spent 3 years filling every hour with something that needed to be done, and now the hours are just there, waiting, and you don't know what to do with the weight of them. By noon, you've reorganized your kitchen. You've cleaned the bathroom. You've gone for a walk that lasted exactly 11 minutes before you turned around because you didn't know where you were going. You've checked your email 4 times out of pure reflex, each time remembering halfway through the motion that there's nothing there for you anymore. By 8 p.m., you've been awake for 14 hours and accomplished nothing you could point to. And somewhere underneath the restlessness, very quiet, like a frequency you can almost hear, is the first real question of the next 90 days. Was this actually courage, or was this just fear wearing a different coat? You don't answer it. You go to sleep. The first week is the honeymoon, and you know it's the honeymoon even while you're in it, which makes it both better and worse. You sleep until 8. You read books you've been meaning to read for years. You cook real meals, not the Tuesday night pasta that takes 11 minutes because you're already tired before you start, but actual meals with ingredients you had to look up. You go to the farmer's market on Saturday morning and you don't check your watch once. You call your friend Marcus on Wednesday. Marcus works in tech, earns more than you did, and has the particular energy of someone who has optimized every corner of his life. You tell him what you did. There's a pause on the line. "How long are you giving yourself?" he asks. 90 days, you say. Another pause. And then what? "I don't know yet." The silence that follows is not hostile, but it is legible. It says, "That's not an answer." It says, "I don't know what to do with this information." It says, in the language of people who've built their sense of safety on the structure of earned income, "You've done something I would never do, and I need to decide whether that makes you brave or reckless." "Keep me posted," Marcus says. You say you will. You hang up. You sit with the aftertaste of the conversation, the way it made you want to justify yourself, to provide numbers and timelines and contingency plans just to make the silence more comfortable for him. And you notice that you didn't. You let the uncertainty stand. For once, you didn't perform stability you don't actually feel. That feels like something. You're not sure yet what. The honeymoon ends on a Thursday. You don't see it coming, which is always how it works. You're sitting at your kitchen table with the second cup of coffee, laptop open, notebook beside it, doing what has become your morning routine, sitting with the blank document and waiting for some version of clarity to arrive. And instead of clarity, something else arrives. A number. Not your savings balance, not your monthly burn rate. Those you know exactly, the way you know your own heartbeat. What arrives is a different kind of number. The number is 0, as in the amount of progress you've made in 18 days toward anything resembling a new direction. 0 clients contacted, 0 business ideas tested, 0 applications submitted, 0 concrete steps taken toward any version of a life that earns income. You've read 4 books, you've cooked many good meals, you've had a lot of thoughts. You have spent 18 days of a 90-day runway, and you are not measurably closer to anything. The panic doesn't arrive dramatically. It doesn't arrive as a wave. It arrives as a very quiet, very rational voice that starts doing math. If day 18 looks like this, what does day 45 look like? What does day 80 look like? You've been treating this like a sabbatical, like a well-deserved rest after years of grinding, like something you earned and deserve to use slowly. But sabbaticals are things people take when they have jobs to return to. You don't have a job to return to. You have a number that is actively, silently, daily decreasing. You close the laptop. You go for a walk. A long one this time. You walk for an hour and a half through neighborhoods you don't usually move through, past people living their Tuesday morning lives, past coffee shops full of people on laptops who might be working or might be doing exactly what you're doing, which is performing productivity while actually just trying to outrun a fear that keeps matching your pace. When you get back to the apartment, you sit down and you write something in the notebook. Not the blank document, the notebook, which feels different. Less like a record, more like a confession. You write, "I think I left because I was scared of staying, not because I knew what I was running toward." You stare at it for a while. Then you write, "Is that bad?" Then, after a longer pause, "Or is that just honest?" By the end of the first month, a pattern has established itself, and the pattern is mornings of intention, followed by afternoons of doubt, followed by evenings where you make a decision about tomorrow that you don't fully keep. You started tracking your spending with a precision you didn't have before. Not obsessively, you're not logging every coffee, but with a new kind of attention. When you were earning $90,000 a year, money moved through your life with a certain fluency. You made more than you spent. You saved a percentage automatically, and the rest disappeared into the texture of daily life without requiring much accounting. Ubers, dinners out, the standing subscription you forgot you had, the thing you bought because it was on sale and might be useful. Money was a resource that replenished itself, and so you treated it the way you treat tap water, present, reliable, not worth measuring carefully. Now you measure it. And what you find, measuring it, is something that embarrasses you slightly in the way that true things sometimes embarrass you. You were spending more than you realized. Not dramatically more, not irresponsibly more, but consistently, quietly, habitually more than you needed to. And the gap between what you needed and what you were spending was absorbed painlessly by the paycheck arriving every 2 weeks. The paycheck was a tide that covered a lot of ground. You didn't see the ground until the tide went out. Now the tide is out, and what you see is coffee shops you went to because the office felt suffocating, not because you wanted coffee. Clothes bought in the compressed decision-making of a lunch break, things that still have tags. Subscriptions to platforms you open 3 times a year. The upgrade you chose because it was available and you figured you could afford it, not because you actually wanted the better version. None of it is damning. All of it adds up. You cancel 7 subscriptions in one sitting. It takes 22 minutes and saves you $180 a month. You sit with the number for a minute. $180 a month is $2,160 a year. At your old salary, $2,160 was a rounding error, a short trip, a thing you'd spend at Christmas without really tracking it. Here, now, $180 a month is 6 more days of runway. It's the difference between month 23 and month 24. You've never thought about money in days before. Something shifts around day 41, and you can't point to exactly why. Maybe it's the canceled subscriptions. Maybe it's the notebook that's now half full of questions you finally started writing honest answers to. Maybe it's the morning run you started on day 32 because you needed something your body could do while your mind was untangling, and which has now become the one fixed point of the day, the thing that happens regardless of what else does or doesn't. But something shifts. And the shift is this. You stop waiting for clarity to arrive, and you start treating confusion as the material you're working with. You stop asking, what do I want to do next? And you start asking, what have I actually been good at? And did I ever let myself fully use it? The question lands differently. It's not about aspiration. It's archaeological. You're digging into what's already there, rather than trying to construct something from scratch. What you find digging is this. You are good at the thing you did for 3 years. The analysis, the synthesis, the ability to take a complicated problem and produce something clear from the chaos of it. You are good at that. What you were bad at, what slowly depleted you, was doing it on someone else's schedule, in service of someone else's vision, in a room where the windows didn't open. This sounds obvious. It sounds like something you should have known. But knowing something intellectually and actually feeling it as true are different experiences. And for 3 years, you'd been too busy to feel it. You open your laptop. You don't open the blank document. You open your email and write a message to 3 people in your network, not asking for a job, not pitching anything, just saying, I'm in a transition and I'm thinking carefully about what I want to build. Could we find 30 minutes to talk? You send it before you can revise it into something more polished and less honest. 2 of the 3 respond within 48 hours. One of them says, near the end of an hour-long conversation, something that you write in your notebook and underline. The people who know what they bring are the easiest to work with. Most people never figure it out. You sit with that for the rest of the afternoon. 60 days in, you do something you haven't done since day 0. You run the numbers not to reassure yourself, but to understand something. You've spent $5,820 in 60 days. That's $97 a day. At your old salary, $90,000 a year, roughly $246 a day after tax, you were earning at roughly 2.5 times the rate you actually need to live. Not live well. Live, the version of life that has good food, a clean apartment, time to run in the morning, and enough left over that a car repair is an inconvenience rather than a crisis. The math sits there, and you look at it. You needed 2.5 times what you need because you'd built a life around a level of income that slowly became the floor. The lifestyle had expanded, invisibly, incrementally, to match the number that arrived every 2 weeks. And the number that arrived every 2 weeks had become so normal that the thought of it stopping felt like the thought of the floor disappearing. But the floor didn't disappear. You're 60 days in and the floor is holding, and it turns out the floor is lower than you thought. Not uncomfortably low, differently low. Low in a way that clarifies things. Differently low. Low in a way that clarifies things. You think about Marcus. You think about what it would mean to go back to a version of what you left. Same salary, different room, different manager. And you notice what the thought produces in you. Not relief, not safety, just a very flat, uninflected no. Not dramatic, not angry, just no. The way you say no to a food you don't like anymore without needing to explain it. Something has recalibrated. You're not sure when, but it happened. 3 days before the 90 days are up, you sit at the same kitchen table where you typed, "What do I actually want?" 60 days ago and left the document blank. The document isn't blank anymore. It's not a business plan. It's not a 5-year strategy. It's more honest than that, and therefore harder to present to anyone else. But you're not trying to present it to anyone else. It's 12 pages of notes, questions, honest answers, a list of things you've learned about yourself that you couldn't have learned any other way except by removing the noise and sitting in the quiet long enough for something real to surface. Here's what you know now that you didn't know then. You know that you had a lifestyle built around an income level rather than around what you actually need. You know the difference now, in dollars, and the difference is significant. You know that the anxiety you felt in the first week, the static, the restlessness, the compulsive checking of an inbox that no longer had anything in it was withdrawal. You were addicted to productivity as performance, to busyness as identity, to the feeling of being needed in a way that justified not asking what you actually needed.
You know that money, for most of the last 3 years, was something that happened to you rather than something you chose. It arrived and it departed, and the gap between the two was comfortable enough that you never had to confront what the choices inside that gap actually said about you. You know that 90 days alone with your own finances is the most honest mirror you've ever sat in front of. And you know this: you're not going back to a $90,000 job with a manager and a floor with windows that don't open, not because you're above it, because you finally know what it costs. Not the salary, the hours, the Tuesday feeling, the elevator at 8:30 a.m., smelling like burnt coffee and recycled air, the version of yourself that was competent and reliable. You close the notebook. You pour the last of the coffee. Through the window, the morning is doing what mornings do, arriving without asking whether you're ready. You're not ready. You're also not afraid of that anymore. And that, it turns out, is the thing 90 days alone can buy you. Not the plan. Not the answer, just the willingness to stand in the open without flinching and say, I don't know exactly where this goes, but I know who's going. The coffee is good. The morning is quiet. Day 91 begins.